Kia ora koutou, no me haere mai ki Quite Simply Politics. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Holly. I'm so grateful to have you with us again for another episode. I am here with somebody I've been really looking forward to talking to, and she's had an extremely busy few days, and that is the Deputy Leader and Finance Spokesperson of New Zealand National Party, Nicola Willis. Welcome.
Kia ora, great to be here.
Thank you so much for making some time in what has been an extremely busy few days after budget.
Yeah.
How has it been going?
Great. I've been around the country. I've been in Auckland, I've been in Hamilton, I've been in Dunedin and about the place, just talking to people about where our economy is at and what we need to do to fix it, because it's pretty fragile right now.
What has been the number one thing that you've heard from people all around the country?
People are just so worried about the cost of living. They've just watched prices get more and more expensive, and they want to know, when's inflation going to get under control, and what are you going to do to take the pressure off my interest rate on my mortgage? Those seem to be the two real pain points.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question, which you may have anticipated coming, about the $5 prescription fees. For everyone listening, do you want to talk us through that? Because the comms on that arguably landed one way, and I assume that you potentially weren't wanting it to land that way.
Yeah, look, I think we come from the position that we don't want anyone to miss out on medicine because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's a blanket requirement that people pay a $5 fee. Well, we would like to make sure that anyone who's on a low income can get support so they don't have to pay that fee.
Yeah.
So we think that would include superannuitants. That would include people who are eligible for a community services card because they're a low-income person or family. And it would also include high health users who have to get lots of prescriptions. So we think having an exemption makes sense for that group. What we disagree with is having the universal approach of saying everyone, even the wealthiest New Zealander, will now get free medicine, because I think, as we all know, there are only so many dollars to go around our health system, and whether it's cancer drugs or operations, there's a lot of things we need to fund. So we have to prioritise and target money where it's going to make the biggest difference for the most people. We do care about families who can't get medicine, and so I regret that hasn't come through. But you know, that's politics. Sometimes we don't get our message through cleanly straight away. We can regret that, but I'm just going to make it really clear to people. We're going to make sure that families who are up against it can get free medicine.
Do you think that politicians don't say things like that enough? You know, where you just said like, we're going to own up to that in terms of the message landing.
Oh, well, I think it's a tough game, politics, where the minute you admit, I didn't do that perfectly, your opponent's like, see, she's not perfect. It's like, well, actually, I didn't do that perfect. I read the budget 40 minutes ago. I got asked a question. Instead of leading by saying, hey, great case for low-income people, great case for people on limited incomes to get free medicine, totally. I didn't get it round the right way, but I'm a human and I'll make a mistake. I get it. You don't want politicians making mistakes all the time, but I don't.
I have, one of the things that interests me is that you, like me, have been a staffer, but now you're an MP. Which is the harder one?
I think being an MP is the greatest job. Because when you're a staffer, you kind of wear the pressure and the pain of wanting your party and your policies to go well. You receive the criticisms, you receive the brickbats, but you don't get the really big highs of the affirmation and the positivity. And being an MP, we get to really connect with people. You know, we get to speak with audiences who react to us personally and give us huge affirmation. I was on the plane the other day and a woman passed me a note. And she just said, Nicola, I just wanted to say thank you for standing up for me. I love it when you speak in Parliament. And I just thought, that's amazing. I'm so lucky. And a staff member doesn't get that.
Because it's interesting here you talking about comms not landing, because I know what that feels like on the other side, and you think, I probably could have given better advice. But it's really interesting to think about it from the perspective of an MP too, is that, like you say, you only have a small amount of time to make a decision and you got to go with it, right? What is some of the decisions that you've had to potentially make on the fly or make quickly that you're most proud of, whether it's because of like a change in circumstance within the party or a position that you've had to land in and go, all right, we have to have a decision on this?
Yeah, well, look, I think there have been lots of decisions and moments where I've felt that we've reacted well. And one I think about is when we got a tax bill turned up in Parliament one night, and it was Tax and Remedial Matters Amendment number whatever. And so you could be forgiven for not really reading that or thinking anything much of it. But I was a diligent young woman, and I went to the regulatory impact statement and I started reading about it. And it was the KiwiSaver tax.
Right.
And what it said was that this would wipe tens of billions of dollars off New Zealanders' KiwiSaver accounts. And I read that and I thought, we have to react to this. And so that night we went out, we did a Facebook Live, we did press releases, we talked to the press and said, the government is literally imposing a KiwiSaver tax. They're coming after your KiwiSaver, and we're going to get them to reverse it. And I'm really proud of that campaign, because within 24 hours, the government backed down. Yeah. So that was great.
We all know what happened. We saw that quite quickly, right? Did you get nervous doing the Facebook Live and leaning into this kind of stuff? Like,
I mean, of course, because it's a risk, right? You do think to yourself, well, if the government's taken this through a cabinet committee, they've had officials look at it, they've taken it to cabinet, surely if it's as bad as it looks, they would have worked out they shouldn't do it. Yeah. So what am I missing here? Yeah. But no risk, no reward. And I think it was a real reminder to me that even governments with all of their thousands of officials can sometimes lose sight of common sense.
Yeah. So if you're looking forward and you're going to lead with the common sense sort of values, what are the things that you're hoping to bring to politics, should you become Deputy Prime Minister?
Yeah, well, look, my values are really grounded in my belief that every individual has their own dignity and has their own contribution to make to their whānau, their community and our country. And the role of government is not to replace their individual effort and initiative, but is to provide them the conditions in which they can succeed. Yeah. So we've got to reward effort. We've got to reward achievement. That's really important. We should celebrate success, whatever form it comes in. We should expect personal responsibility, because actually when we give people the gift of responsibility, we're also saying we respect you and we think you are capable. I believe very much that it's a strong family or a strong community that will solve a problem before a government will. That, government departments with all of their good intentions and their great strategy documents and their glossy pictures, ultimately they're clunky and slow compared to an awesome family that's been empowered, or compared to a community group that's been given the resources it needs to make a difference in people's lives. I believe in equal opportunity. That doesn't mean equal outcome, because if you work a lot harder and you do a lot more, sometimes you are going to get a better outcome, and we have to reward that in our society. You have to reward the innovators, the people who take risks, who are clever, who are just particularly hardworking. So I believe in equal opportunity, because I think that the way for that to occur is ultimately you've got to have a great education system. Yeah. You've got to have a great welfare safety net that holds people up and gives them opportunity. So all of those values, they inform my politics, and they're the values I want to bring to government.
When you think about your time in education, when you were coming up, how would your teachers have described you?
Oh, it's so funny. I was thinking about that the other day in the context of my own children's school reports. And I think that I was this mixture of both feisty and disruptive in a way that could get away with itself, particularly if I was a bit bored. But then also, pretty diligent. I was someone who wanted to do well, who wanted to, I guess, please people and get good results. So if you got that out of me as a teacher, I would just go 100 miles an hour. But if I was a little bit fed up or bored, naughty. But naughty. And I do remember I did get kicked out of the odd class, and, there was the odd clash. So feisty, hardworking, kind of like when she's tamed, she's okay.
Is there any teachers that you want to apologise to?
I won't, because the ones that were the mean to me, actually I still to this day think that they had a role to play in it. But there are definitely teachers I would thank. Yeah. I mean, Johan Barton, who was my English teacher, when I was 14. She was this incredible teacher, and I will never forget her saying to me, in life, experiences are worth so much more than things.
Yeah.
So if you ever have a choice between how you're going to earn $1 or how you're going to spend $1, think to yourself, what is this experience going to bring me? And that, was a profound insight just at that age. And that was one of many.
Yeah.
Like, she was amazing. She really shaped my thinking. So she and lots of teachers I would thank for their patience with me and the wisdom they imparted.
That's a powerful message to think about experience rather than things. Do you have an experience that's top of mind in the past 5 years during your time at Parliament that stands out above all?
The past 5 years have been incredible. I think I will never forget the moment when our caucus decided to nominate me to be their deputy leader, and then unanimously supported that by applause. Because, in politics, to be able to be a leader of your team is the ultimate kind of goal, that people trust you, that they want you to lead the party. And I felt in that moment the respect of the people who I really respect, and I felt a great privilege and a great call to service and just huge excitement. And it was surreal for me because I had never anticipated that happening so early in my political career. I would never have dared to have hoped that that was where I would get to. So there was an element of surprise, I guess, and excitement.
What did you do when you went home? Did you talk to your kids about it? Did you talk to your husband Duncan about it? Like, how did you manage that excitement, with your whānau?
Hey, well, it was a whirlwind. We just went straight into so much work to do mode because it was just like interviews on planes around the country, do this interview, do this thing, da-da-da-da-da, and it just went, whoa. And actually at that time we had a lot going on at home too. Duncan had lost his mother. We had heaps happening on the family front. So it was quite surreal, really. Yeah. It was that mixture of you kind of got to get on with the job, but also I felt that when I was with my family, it needed to be family time, not Nicola talking about what's happened at work this week time, which, let's face it, is important in my world, but actually for the kids and my husband, they had something far more important going on.
Yeah. You're just mum.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One of the things that I really, really, well, I was going to say admire, but that's absolutely the wrong word, is that I notice with you is your amazing sense of dress. And I have to this is one of the things that I always giggle at, is not a lot of people will pick up on brands, but I wore a jumper from a New Zealand brand, Kowtow, to an event. And we were sitting there having dinner and you said to me, Kowtow? And I said, yes, absolutely.
Well, they've got a great store in Wellington and what they're doing in terms of sustainability is awesome. So I'm conscious of their stuff, yeah.
We have to do an outfit check. You have to share with your outfit what you're wearing because I love it.
Oh, well, you're flattering me because actually someone said to me the other day, oh, Nicola, you strike me as a very practical woman. You always seem to wear trousers and I can imagine you wear tracksuits at home. And I was like... Okay, we'll go with that. Fine, whatever. Hey, who doesn't love a good tracksuit? So I'm totally down with that.
But also, we're judgment call on your clothes at home. Like, okay.
Yeah, I am a practical person. Look, actually, I'm ashamed because you've asked me. I'm wearing an outfit that is not New Zealand. This is from the Smith & Coe's 30% off sale. And apparently it is Tommy Hilfiger. So who figured? I mean, this was not a brand that I'd ever shopped before, but pink suit with a stripe down the side. I mean, you got to do it.
Do you get, because for me, I just love fashion. I love that, that kind of stuff. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm wearing a Sailor Moon t-shirt. I love sort of eclectic things. And one of the things that I often see is wahine especially sort of get a little bit... annoyed when they're asked about their clothes and things like that, but I'm genuinely just interested. I like fashion and I like that kind of stuff. Do you have a view on that? Do you get annoyed?
I guess where we all come from in politics, whether you're a man or a woman, is you don't want your clothes to be a distraction. You don't want your clothes to get in the way of what you're saying and what you're trying to communicate. So if someone is looking at the big coffee spill on your tie rather than hearing the words coming out of your mouth, that's a fail. And equally, if people are so distracted by the colour of my lipstick or the cut of my dress that they're not really listening, then I haven't nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want clothes to get in the way. But equally, I try and think of it as a little advantage we have as wahine, which is, hey, my colleagues, most of them, the men, they can wear navy, charcoal, maybe black when they go to work at Parliament. I've got the whole rainbow available.
Have you ever seen a politician wear like a beige suit? Or a white suit?
Oh, yeah, that's a good, like a male politician. Yeah, I think so. I mean, they do mix it up every now and then, to be fair. I'm overly restricting them. But by and large, you'd expect them to be wearing a dark suit, wouldn't you? I mean, that's what you expect a man to turn up in. Yeah. And I wear my share of dark suits, to be fair.
That is such an interesting talking point, though, because I do enjoy appreciating a wahine's clothing, and then the way some people interpret that is that I'm minimizing them to the clothes. I'm like, no, I enjoy what you wear, you know?
Yeah, and you wouldn't want it to be a barrier. So I think that New Zealanders are really fair-minded. So we're very much, we judge people on their motivations, on what we think they're about, on how genuine they are and authentic they are. And so I don't really think voters care about what you're wearing so long as you're real, right? And so long as your clothes are respectful and they go with who they think you are.
Yeah, absolutely. How have you seen yourself over the past 5 years sort of change? Has there been any sort of development that you've seen, or things that you've learned about yourself that you didn't expect through politics?
I think I've become much more confident. Yeah. Because definitely when I first entered Parliament, I really had the sense that every word that I wrote in an email or that I said in public had this huge kind of ripple effect around it that meant if I didn't get it perfect, it could be the end of my career. It could. And subsequently I have made words that have been really bad for my career. So it is true that it's a high wire act. But equally, if you constrain yourself so much that you're so worried about every word, then the real you doesn't get to shine through. But also, most importantly, you don't have the confidence to articulate things clearly. Yeah. And that is so important, just being clear with people. And you've also just got to forgive yourself that sometimes you'll make mistakes. Yeah. And that is okay. Actually, mistakes are part of every job. They're part of every person, and the trick is to learn from them. So I've learnt that, to not be as much of a perfectionist, basically. Yeah. And I think the other thing I've learnt is that I'm actually I'm really sensitive. So I find events where people are really generous and kind, or moments where constituents who have helped are really emotional themselves, that really touches me deeply, and I have learned that sensitivity is something that you can in politics turn off because you think this is overwhelming. But when I keep it turned on, that's when I do my best work.
Has that ever brought up any physical emotions like tears or anything?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been at Porphyry. Yeah. I've been with people where I've definitely got teary. And I think that's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We were recently at an event as well, and I was quite lucky you got to introduce me on stage. And one of the things that you did was nailed my pipiha. And I was absolutely stoked because te reo Māori is a journey for all of us. Do you have your own journey with reo, and how is that going?
Yeah, it's something that I wish I'd carried on at university. I did a couple of papers at university and I dropped out of them. And I'm like, gosh, 20 years ago you knew you should be doing it, but you didn't follow it through. Yeah. And I wish I had followed it through. When I started at Parliament, I had this real feeling that learning some reo Māori was going to be critical to being able to do the work I wanted to do, to be able to be with the Māori groups and organisations and my electorate, to be able to be comfortable in marae, to be able to introduce myself in a range of settings. So I hired a tutor wonderful woman, and we met once a week or once a fortnight, and she just took me through some basics of how to conduct myself in different situations, different mihi for me to use, to go through my own pipiha, to know some basic words and formulations. I'm ashamed to say I'm not still doing it once every week or fortnight. I kind of switched my focus to learning all of the things for my finance role. But it's certainly something that I want to keep going and learning, and it's certainly something I'm alive to and I think about. And so I, whether it's with my colleague Hariti Hipango, whether it's with Dr. Reti, or whether it's with Tama Pōtaka, at least once a week, I'm saying to them, hey, how would I say this? How do I pronounce this? What does this mean?
What would you say to people who are still sort of umming and ahhing about taking that first step? Because it sounds like you took that first step a long time ago, right?
Yeah, well, look, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And you've just got to be prepared to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And so the thing is, I've found that when I mispronounce things and I get it wrong, people are really forgiving because they just want you to give it a go.
Yeah.
And it's the progress that counts. Like if I was still saying everything really badly 2 years later, I think people would get embarrassed. But my advice would just be that if you know more, you feel far more empowered about it all.
Yeah. It was that sense of when you said like all of my whakapapa, because obviously that carries so much mana for me, and it was all correct in front of a room who many of them I don't think that they sort of necessarily make that connection. I felt so honoured, and it's just that kind of thing of what it means to be able to share that and then hear the intensity, like the intention behind it. I'm going to share it correctly. It gives you such a sense of support, somebody standing alongside you. When there's been sort of skirmishes through the party and things in regards to what people have been said, I saw something recently with one of the national candidates down in Tairi saying some things which potentially didn't sit well with you. How hard was that a decision for you to stand up and make the statement that you said that you made?
Look, I just picking up on your last point quickly though, I just want to say that that's one of the beautiful traditions, I think, of doing a pepeha. It's a wonderful thing that when you meet someone, you say, hey, look, this is actually where I come from. This is who my family is. This is what I'm about. Because wouldn't it be good if we did that in all cultures? Because that's embracing the whole person, not just I'm here to be a function refinance spokesperson today. So, yeah, I love that. But look, in terms of times when other people, make silly comments, I've always been pretty upfront about expressing how I feel about it. And so in the case you're referring to, I did say, look, it was disgusting, because it was. And then it's not really up to me to do the decision making about what happens from there. We've got a party structure that do all of that. And I figure that it's the same rules as it is for life. If I'm prepared to say it to you, to your face, and I'm quite able to say it, then I should also be able to say it publicly. But if I'm not able to say it to you in your face, then I shouldn't be saying it publicly.
Do you think people shy away from that a bit much?
I think none of us want to criticise each other. That's not a natural instinct. Well, I suppose political opponents quite like it. When I look at some of the memes of me going around, I think, some
memes?
people do. Yeah, well, not memes, but
Tell
cartoons.
me more.
Oh, no. I'm not going there. I'm not feeding it.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not natural to criticise people who are your colleagues who are in the same team. You don't feel good about that. But equally, I'm a big believer in that saying that the standard you walk by is the standard you accept. So if you want your team to have a good culture and high standards, then you actually have to enforce them, which means where people aren't living up to them, you call it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it get scary calling it out?
I guess that's the bit about the confidence coming in, is that I don't really get scared by that anymore because I have belief that I get my values and my judgment right, and that I would rather regret having said something than regret not having said something.
Yeah. That's a good takeaway. That's a really good takeaway. we are coming to the end of our time, and there are a few things that we do before we wrap up.
Okay.
All of these
Trepidation.
Yes, no, to be too scared. Well, one of them is the bowl of bravery, which is in front of you here, which you can see. But before we dive into that, where you pull a question out and you can choose to answer it or not, it's up to you. Up to you. One of the things I'm always interested in is if you could have 5 people at a table, passed on or alive, who would those people be and why for a dinner party that you could connect with?
Oh, but that's too easy a question.
Is it?
Like, of course it would be my 4 children and my husband. Like, obviously. And I got to do that last night, which was magic, and it really struck me that I am working hard at the moment. As you'd expect, there's an election coming up. The country depends on it.
Yeah.
What happens in the election. So I'm not having dinner with my husband and my 4 children as often as I'd like, and that is when I am at my absolute happiest. When we're around a dinner table, we're sharing kai, we're talking about the day, we're a unit, and I just feel like nothing can touch us, and that's beautiful for me.
I'm not going to ask you. Well, you can't choose them because that's such a nice answer, and I'm extremely grateful to be able to have your time, which means I know that you're not at dinner with your whānau tonight. So thank you so much. Shall we do the bowl of bravery?
Yes, here we go.
Happy to do it? Okay.
Here we go.
So they're not too bad. They're not too bad.
All right. Okay, here we go. What's the bet? She's got all the questions the same. And it's just one.
I haven't. It's not rigged.
Oh, here we go. What is one thing you have on your bucket list? Okay, this is going to sound cheesy, but I really want to do the Great Walks, the New Zealand Great Walks, with my kids.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't need to be all 4 kids on every Great Walk.
Yeah.
But I want to have done each of them and to have had my children do them with me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I could have a one-on-one experience with each of them on a different Great Walk, but I want to have done the Great Walks.
Would they be willing to do that?
I
Those
think
are big walks.
Yeah, I think so, because they're older now, 13, 11, 10, 7. And I'm thinking that some of these Great Walks are going to end up happening post-politics, Holly.
Okay.
There's not a heck of a lot of time. But doing the Great Walks and getting into our national parks is definitely on my bucket list. I love that.
I got to say, I was one of those children where I would complain every time my parents took me on walks. So I'm just power to them if they're all up for that, because I was definitely not one of those children.
Well, it's interesting because we do quite a lot of bushwalking at home. We're really lucky where we live. There's quite a lot of bush around, and I find when I take the boys in particular on a walk, that's when they chat away and talk to me about what's really happening at school and with their friends. Right. There's something about not being in a formal situation, just being in the bush and nature. They just get a bit chattier. So that works really well for us.
Amazing. If there was one thing that you could leave our listeners with, what would it be as we get to the end of this podcast?
I think what I would say is sometimes it is tempting to split Parliament into the parties that care and then the parties that don't. Yeah. Or to say there's the parties that care about numbers and there's the parties that care about people, or there's the parties that care about the wealthy and there's the parties that care about the poor. And I truly do not believe that is the right way to divide up the Parliament. I genuinely believe that MPs across the spectrum go to Parliament with good intentions to deliver good change for the country. That's why you go, and I'd say that even of my worst political opponents, actually they're good. They're there for good reasons. Actually, what divides parties is the how they want to deliver progress for individuals, for families, for communities, for the country. And the how is really important, but don't ever fall into the idea that some parties have bad intentions. Actually, we all care deeply about all members of this community. We just have a great debate about how best to deliver for them. And I think that's something really important, because our politics is best when we debate the how, not when we question the character and values of those talking about the how.
Kia ora. That's a really, really great note to wrap up this episode. thank you so much for coming and making the time to share your whakaaro with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I just want to wish you luck going forward, getting out and about around the country, and keep slaying with these amazing suits.
Thanks so much, Holly. I've enjoyed it. Go well.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. This is another episode. And remember, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and as well as all the other platforms, and check out the video on YouTube. Ka kite.